Hi, this is Kara. Welcome to Breaking Free Fridays, or welcome back if you've been following the series. It's great to have you here. So today I was inspired to talk about what are you trying to prove? Oftentimes we find ourselves compulsorily trying to prove something. Prove that we're good enough, prove that we're worthy of love, prove that we're smart, prove that we're worth existing. I mean, there are so many different areas. And one of the things that this is an indicator of, if you uncover the pattern of what you are trying to prove, then you'll have a trail of breadcrumbs that takes you back to a core wound that was developed. And these are something that develop in childhood. They are deep-seated wounds that come from an immense emotional pain. They leave a very strong imprint in our system, and they're often developed out of an experience that's traumatic to us. It can be something that is overtly abusive that creates that trauma imprint and that belief, or it can be something really innocent even. And given the fact that as children, developmentally, we really see the world from a very self-centered place. And so innocently, we may make judgments on ourselves, very harsh and critical judgments, out of a very seemingly benign situation. As an example, let's say, your mom runs to the bathroom and you're a little kid and you have a need in that moment. And your mom can't come to you in that moment because she's in the bathroom. And in your innocent way, you may think, oh my gosh, I don't matter. My needs aren't going to be taken care of. I'm not worthy. There could be any number of different judgments that can come. That's kind of the innocent side of it. And then when you have any kind of over abuse or anything like that, that definitely results in some significant harsh judgments about ourselves and shame. And so these wounds, they can be things like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worth loving, people are going to leave me, this fear of abandonment. They often interrelate with a very deep-seated fear. So it could be, fear of failing, fear of success, even fear of not mattering, fear of being broken. So if you find yourself working hard to prove the opposite, usually it's an effort to prove the opposite, then that will lead you to whatever your core, a core wound is. And the reason that this is important to understand is that understanding our core wound gives us insight into the subconscious patterning that runs the show behind the scenes until we know what it is and are able to actually work with that, heal that, and live from a more conscious place around what is actually true. And, some of this is an invitation for beautiful integration work, inner child work. There are lies that these wounds tell us, for example, I must be perfect to be loved, or I must do and prove my worth to be loved or to be enough. Or for example, another lie might be, the pain that I experience is my fault. And the suffering was never a reflection of your worth. The amount that we suffer is actually an indication of the level of resistance that we have in life, which is kind of an interesting piece in this inner work journey as well. But another thing that we can sometimes get caught up in from a lie around these wounds is I have to do it myself. Like if it's going to be done right, it's got to be done by me. And, these are really tricky because the truth is we are meant to be in community. We're meant to be in connection, and we are not meant to do things alone. We learn and grow from each other so much. And, that is such an invitation for connection and also for opportunity to learn how to collaborate and how to see things from different points of view, and to release our need for things to be done and just so. There's not necessarily a right way to do the dishes. For example, I'm making something up that is kind of a menial task, but when we have these woundings that are really operating at a charged level, we can come up with these different stories that we operate under, that can with some distance and more perspective, we can realize, oh my gosh, that is actually a kind of silly, but yet we get pulled into it because it has this very deep-rooted hook in us. And some of the things that you can do to relax that hook, especially when you realize what that wound is, or what that core issue that you might be working on in your life, trying to prove that it's not true. And it was never true. And so trying to prove that it's not, it just creates this exercise almost in futility, instead of being able to really land in our center and be very authentic. Because what happens when we try to prove that, for example, in my case, I ran for a long time on the thought that I wasn't good enough. That's one of my core wounds. And the way that I coped with that and the way I showed up was just this incessant perfectionism, overachieving. Like, if I could only do enough, then I would prove that I matter, that I would prove that I'm enough, that I could prove that I'm worth existing, that I could prove that I'm lovable, that I'm worth loving. And what happens in that effort is that we disconnect from our authentic self. And in our effort to prove, we are actually seeking validation of the proof outside of ourselves. And that gives our power away. And it actually, at a very deep level, and an innocent level, because we don't do this on purpose, we don't do this consciously, it's actually a way of manipulating the other person, because we're trying to get something from them, instead of just being authentically in relationship with someone and really coming to a relationship from a place of being whole and integrated in ourselves. So some of the things that are really effective to try to unravel this is to recognize, okay, what is this pattern that I'm doing, and where did this come from? Whose voice is this? Because oftentimes there can be like a critical or harsh judgment that was made against us, and we internalized it. And the other person, they most likely didn't even have any intention of having the kind of outcome on us that did have. And so that's where some of that innocence comes in. And so we get to reclaim our empowerment in that way. And the other thing is to really come into greater connection with ourselves. This is all about connection to ourselves, connection to nature. I mean, look at this gorgeous lake behind me. And you can probably hear the birds in the background. I saw some pelicans swimming across the lake just a few minutes ago, and gulls galore and ducks. Nature, at least for me, is such a symbol and a connector to God and spirit. And it's an easy way to really come into center when you're in a place that feels very sacred and beautiful to you. So, connecting to that in, whether that's in nature, whether that's by prayer, whether that's in more of a meditative state, really experiencing that sense of love and connection to the divine, and to that incredible divine source within you. So that big piece of connection, I can't emphasize that enough. And then also work on relaxing that intensity behind the proving. So, for example, one of the things that I used over the years in relaxing the perfectionism tendency that I had built up as a very strong coping mechanism and intense pattern, was, little by little and over time, I started to allow myself to self-care. I ended up bringing that to a place of a non-negotiable, but initially, for the idea for me to actually take time for myself, I couldn't even embrace it at first. And so this is something that you get to practice, incrementally over time. And with persistence, you realize the gold that is discovered in reclaiming that connection to you and the truth about who you are and how incredible you are and how brilliant you are and how worthy you are just because you are you. So I invite you to think of ways that you can start giving yourself moments of more fun, of more joy, of more happiness, of more self-care, because that releases the grip of that wounding that's kind of driving behind the scenes in such an intense way. I'd love to hear your experience with wounding and what your thoughts are around how you found that you've been trying to prove something and it's actually been an invitation to uncover some of your limiting beliefs and your wounds that are the hidden treasures behind breaking free and getting to another level of empowerment. If you've liked this video, please subscribe, share it with people that you love, that you care about, and I will look forward to seeing you next week. I hope you have a great week, and here's to your next level of empowerment and breaking free. Bye for now.